Welcome to Tech Smarter. This is the place where we talk with innovators, operators, and investors that are shaping the future of aging services. On today's episode, we're tackling the real challenges of bringing new technology to older adults. And we all know how challenging that can be. My guest, Scott Collins, is the chairman and CEO of Linkage, and they are a strategic partnership of senior living providers and a company actively helping to accelerate innovation. We're going to get real about how we conduct market research, break down the dysfunctional silos across the healthcare industry, and find ways to accelerate technology adoption so innovators can build solutions that actually work. Scott, welcome back to Tech Smarter.
Abbie, thank you so much. It's great to be with you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Scott, for anyone who's not familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Scott Collins, CEO of Linkage. We've been around a while. We started out in managed care. We were kicked off by a number of not-for-profit providers in Ohio. Then we expanded into group purchasing, market research. Some may know us from the Ziegler Linkage venture funds, where we invest in earlier stage businesses with products, services, and technologies focused in the healthcare and aging space. And then most recently created our own venture studio, Linkage Launch, to really dig in and start building businesses ourselves with our network of co-builders in senior living and care and other parts of the healthcare continuum.
Wonderful. And tell me, how did you get into this space?
I knew someone who actually is still on the board of Linkage. I was at GE Capital and Heavy Equipment Finance. They shut our division down, and I found myself looking for a new opportunity back in 2002. And Linkage was known as Senior Resources Alliance back then. It was a startup, and he said, "Hey, I know you're looking for work. We've got a director of member services opportunity available." And at that time, we were just on the ground floor trying to get started. And I thought, well, we'll be out of business in 6 months, but this is a good resume filler. And then 23 years later, we're still here. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Good to know that. Good to know that. You know, I'm sure in your time you have seen so many innovators enter the senior care space with preconceived notions about what older adults want or need. And, you know, myself included, a lot of people think that older adults just want simplicity and big buttons, but in reality, it's about genuine utility and solving problems. I want to know from you, what is the single biggest misconception that innovators have about developing technology for older adults?
Thank you for that question. Single one size fits all. And you still see it today with that beautiful plus sign that comes right after the number 65. As a society, we've become accustomed to this idea that once you hit that magical age, everybody over that is one giant homogenous group. And if I can just sell them one thing, it'll be great. And nothing could be further from the truth. This idea that there are very distinct differences and nuances within that lived experience over that age. It really takes a lot of time, effort, and diligence to dig in and understand it. The same way companies have been trying to understand the younger consumers for years, and will pour millions and millions of dollars into that. This is a space of the economy that's largely been overlooked and continues to be overlooked.
Yeah, I see that happening all the time also when working one-on-one with adults. When we're directly involved in helping them, we've seen how, you know, let's say one 85-year-old is very different from another 85-year-old. You just can't loop them all into one big bucket. Some of them have more developed tech skills than others. And it's always a good idea to get a baseline foundation as to where they're coming from. I want to move into a little bit about market research. We all know how important market research is, but the way you get feedback from an older adult is completely different than from a 20-something. And can you outline some of the key differences between conducting market research with older adults versus a younger demographic?
Yeah, one of the most interesting parts of this, and this is something we've thought about for a long time, and Sue Biox, who runs Linkage Connect, she's the real expert on this. But this is the one segment of market research that it's very difficult to bring your own either conscious or unconscious bias around how you want to frame or shape the questions because you haven't been there yet. So market researchers who are doing studies with younger cohorts, they can bring their own lived experience to how they might want to design or think they want to, start framing questions or even assumptions about what that particular segment of consumers might want. This is true blue ocean territory for many researchers because they haven't been here yet. And so I think one, making sure that you don't sort of bring that baggage with you into the study itself, and then really taking the time to do this customer discovery without what we call leading the witness, and being very open to wherever the conversation leads with the understanding that you're going to have to dig deeper and deeper, kind of like the five whys. Um, because to your point, it isn't a homogenous group. It's not a one size fits all. And at the end of the day, age really is just a number. And you said it perfectly. One person who's 85 might have a vastly different lived experience than someone else who's 85. And therefore, you're going to get significantly different responses to your question. And I think that's unexpected for many, many people who try to conduct market research in this space.
Really, really unique. I'd never thought of it that way. I know that as a provider of senior services, I do agree with what you said that you actually haven't been there yet, so you don't know exactly how that falls into your experience. So that is a really good point. One thing I have noticed is that the senior care industry is full of silos. We've got senior living, we have home care, we have healthcare, and they all have their own systems and priorities. And sometimes this is a disconnect when we're trying to work on innovation. What do you see as the two biggest barriers that stop different parts of the healthcare continuum from collaborating effectively?
Yeah, oh man, I just had a conversation about this earlier this morning, and I'm going to open up this idea of the continuum. We tend to think of it more as an ecosystem, and
Mhm.
it's a team sport now. So when we look at sort of the senior living and care space and the different categories in the post-acute arena, and then we look at what's going on in acute care, also this idea of the payer part of the equation. I think that the way I characterize the siloism is one, there's this misalignment of incentives. What's good for me might not be good for you, and so there's this idea that I've got to operate within my own silo in order to protect my part of the ecosystem. The other is I think there's a fundamental lack of understanding and appreciation for the operational, financial, let's call it policy related challenges faced by other parts of the healthcare ecosystem and how that impacts them. And in turn, how those challenges also impact you in your part of healthcare. I think there's just this need for a more fulsome understanding of how these different parts work together and understanding also the policy implications of that at the federal and state level and how we can think more holistically, and maybe more transparently around what are the problems we're facing, what are those big jobs that we need to get done. And if we, instead of thought about how we perceive each other across the negotiating table, but instead came shoulder to shoulder at the front end of innovation. And that's where I think there's the most potential to really create something new, something unique, something that will work for all, is doing it at the front end as opposed to reverse engineering these siloed solutions that have existed for so long.
Can you share a specific example of a successful technology that was built through this cross-industry collaboration?
Yeah, it's still happening in real time. Let me give you two examples. And it's really, well, I'm going to give you three. Two are early stage companies,
Okay.
and one is something we did 10 years ago. There's a company that's just emerging called Care Access, who has, it came out of a senior living and care organization who expanded and started collaborating with other providers in the space, and it's focused on care coordination across affordable housing. Okay. And so they have really looked more at this cross-sectorization development idea and are relaunching that business. The other, interestingly, is also in the affordable housing space called Beacon. And that one actually came out of, I think it's Harvard Business School by a couple of young entrepreneurs there. They got connected to affordable housing providers and other service coordination government agencies in the greater Boston area, and then got connected to United Church Homes here in Ohio through their EIR, Executive Residence Program. And so that's like really small examples of how we're starting to see people moving beyond their sort of core sphere of influence or breaking outside of their silos to look more broadly at, how do government programs impact the solution I'm trying to build? What different provider types might be good customers for this today, or as I look at the development of my product roadmap, the things that I want to develop in the future. And rewinding the clock back to 2015, here in Ohio, we were working with the Ohio State University, and they had this idea that they might want to look at a cross-functional team of students from multiple departments within the university. So School of Engineering, nursing, gerontology, marketing, finance. They brought these groups of students together, and the project was to collaborate with older adults to create a startup. And so they approached us, and we actually got 2 linkage members in the greater Columbus area, 2 CCRCs, and they each had a group of students that recruited teams of older adults to be their co-creators. And it was start with a whiteboard, and then the end of the project was to pitch to this group of professors. And one of the requirements was that the older adult had to be on the pitch team. This was in the spring semester. And so what was really interesting is the students came in with these ideas that they wanted to try and turn into businesses. The older adults from the communities basically told them all the great reasons why that wasn't something they needed and why it wouldn't work. And then lo and behold, in the middle of that semester, spring break showed up, and the students were a bit concerned, like, oh, what's going to happen to the project now? So as they departed for spring break, the residents kept meeting together. And in fact, in one case, completely pivoted the idea so that by the time the students got back from spring break, they're like, oh my gosh, it's a totally different company. And then with the final part of the project, watching these residents pitch the idea to these professors on stage with the students, it was amazing. And I will tell you, those students at the end of the semester were in tears because they weren't going to be co-creating with these teams of residents from senior living communities once the semester had ended. So I think it just goes to the power of what can happen when you truly engage the customer and various stakeholder segments at the whiteboard front end of innovation.
I love it. I love it. I have chills just thinking about it. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's such a point in which to get them involved, get that buy-in, get the collaboration, because so often we just get stuck in a place where we just see our solution only without bringing in the research and the development and the insight from other people. Like, such a good point. In your experience, what's the most significant non-technical challenge to getting a new product successfully adopted within a senior living experience community?
Yeah, I'm going to take this back to sort of the front end. And, we've invested in a lot of companies over the last 11 years, and we see this theme emerging over and over, which is a misalignment of product market fit based on not deeply understanding at the granular level, one, the pain that is trying to be solved, and two, this workflow that can impact the decision as to whether implement or adopt or purchase. And along with that, I think there's also this lack of clear understanding of how buyers want to buy, especially in senior living and care. who should be at that buyer's table, who's able to make that buying decision. Is it a clinical buyer, financial buyer? How do you get them to yes? And then not setting this appropriate expectation around the timeline to implementation, the ROI case and how you've developed the pricing strategy, the ease of use, how much time does it take to train, and knowing how much turnover we have, particularly in the healthcare part of this business. How much of my time as a manager is going to be spent retraining people over and over? So I think there's this real need for a deeper, fuller understanding of all those different aspects of that sort of go-to-market strategy, buying decision, implementation process, so that you can approach the market having understood where these barriers or hurdles will show up along the way, and you can disarm that up front. Because I've seen a lot of times really, really good solutions not scale because they didn't make it easy for the buyers to buy, and they didn't really understand who that they should approach initially within these senior living organizations that have that pain point and will understand how your solution works and is able to help get that implemented for you.
Yeah, what would you say is a realistic timeline for a startup looking to get its technology tested and adopted within the senior care market?
Abbie, I've known you for a while. You're going to hate this answer, but it all depends. And that's not a cop out. And it goes back to the very beginning of this one size fits all assumption. And that's true also for solutions that are more oriented towards senior living organizations as the buyer. So I'd say one, it depends on the problem that you're trying to solve itself. Is it something that's going to go into the administrative part of the organization? Is it a clinical solution? Is it more oriented towards the facilities management side? Or is it truly a resident focused or resident facing technology that you're being developed? So one, that means you have to really understand who you're trying to cater to, and also engage with them front diligence around what that timeline should look like. And then the other is getting access to the right type of organizations for your particular solution. And then within those, the people that have that specific pain, because sometimes there's this, I'll say, broad idea that everybody's in skilled nursing or everybody's in independent living. And so you really have time to understand the different nuances or components of the broader senior living and care space.
Yeah, really good point. I know that there are some people who are saying lately that, I've had the same experience where people think it's all about nursing homes or they think it's all about memory care, but it's really not. It's really not. So let me ask you, in your view, how can technology you're coming across help bridge these gaps between all of these different care settings? And is there one specific piece of tech you believe has the most potential to do this?
Oh man, that is such a good question. I haven't really seen it, even with some of, and I'm not going to name names only because some we invest in. And I don't want to look like I'm giving endorsements, so I apologize for being a little bit evasive. But even as you look at technologies that are well scaled throughout certain parts of our ecosystem, there are other parts where you would think, oh, everybody must use that. And they've never even heard of it. So I think there's still this idea that we're still miles apart. I think that's still very true. Goes back to that idea of silos again. But where I'm particularly interested, and I'm just going to kind of pick on more the healthcare side of our business, are those technologies that play well in the post-acute space, however you want to define that, skilled nursing, long-term, post-acute, whatever, all the way through home health, independent living, and into the hospital. So those technologies that can sort of bridge those different gaps and utilize data in a way that's been promised for 25 years, but we don't have within these different parts of healthcare the time, money, or people to really use that information to be more prescriptive, predictive, leading to better outcomes. I think there's still a lot of work yet to be done, sort of in those, I'll call them the transitions in care parts of the industry, that I think have great promise, but are just now starting to emerge.
What would you say then is one of the most important steps that the senior care industry as a whole can take just to be more receptive to innovation?
Oh man. One, understanding that it is every bit well, let me back up. It needs to be every bit as much a part of their intentionality as an organization as any other part of their strategy. When I first got in this business 20 something years ago, I asked people, so how much do you have in your budget for R&D? And those are like, R&D. I'm like, well, tell me an innovative company out there, and they'll talk about Microsoft or Amazon or whoever. Like, how much do you think they spend on R&D? And the short answer to that is an unbelievable amount of money. And yet we talk about wanting to be innovative, but we don't usually have the dollars earmarked to fund a comprehensive strategy to really focus on innovation. So I would say, if it's something you want to do, be intentional, engage a cross-functional group across the organization. This is not a C-suite exercise. This needs to engage a broad set of stakeholders from throughout the organization, including residents and others, and not just at one level, but up and down throughout the organization, because on any given day, the C-level executives are not the smartest folks in the organizations. It's the people on the ground at the front end of customer service delivery who are seeing firsthand what are those big problems that nobody's trying to address. And then from there, making sure that you really do set aside some budgetary resources. So that's on the individual level. And then as an industry, looking at different groups where we can collectively come alongside each other, start to do that collaboratively, because the opportunity is so significant that there isn't really any one organization or entity that can tackle it all by themselves. So it's going to be a team sport, but it has to start with intentionality and really a focused strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. What we talked about today, it just proves a simple truth. You can have the most brilliant idea, but without involving the end user and breaking down those silos in the system, it goes nowhere. And then the future of age tech, it lies not in isolation, but in a genuine collaboration and a holistic approach. Scott, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here with us today and for the incredible work that you're doing to accelerate innovation. What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to join you again. It's always a treat. I think my LinkedIn handle is in the chat. So by all means, reach out to me through that, or on our website. You can get me through that as well. So always happy to connect with entrepreneurs, innovators, providers, or anybody who wants to go deeper into these topics. I'm always excited to do that.
Wonderful. And for those of you that are joining us today in the chat and later on, we just want to thank you so much for being with us. And we will see you right back here next week. Thank you so much. Bye.